Hello and welcome to our tutorial. So in this tutorial we're going to just continue on our work on our VR game and focus mainly on trying to get some Bluetooth input to work. So with no further ado, let's get stuck in. So there's a few bits to sort of work on here. So let's just reflect on what we had. So we had our level 1 set up on our intro. So we could press play and we could look around as the video played back on the inside of a sphere. So we could play cutscene, and then after designated amount of time we would fall here to our game level. Now what we have here is I can move around, and we hadn't set that up before. Now if no collision I can move through the buildings, and yeah, so this is just to test movement. And what we'll have a look at in a little bit is that working on a phone. So let's just kind of walk our way through how we've done that. So we had this thing here called CamRig, and that was basically our camera as the child of an empty. So there's our main camera there. So none of those settings have changed. All I've done is I've gone to my standard assets and I've dragged in this prefab here, which is the rigid body FPS controller. So I've dragged and dropped that into the scene. And by default that has its own camera. So if I drag this in here, for example, you can see, oh no, it's not going to do that for me. So I was going to get rid of that actually before it mucks up my scene. So, but when I drag it in, I'll have, it comes with a camera, so you need to delete that. And then I've just dragged this in here, this empty that was the parent of the camera, and then zeroed it out so that it's basically in the same position as this rigid body controller. Now, in order to preview it here, by default when you change to Android, you've got mobile input is normally, like, it's set up like this. So you've got disabled as the only option. And if I press play here, and I press my keys on my keyboard, when I start to play, if it will run, which it should in a second. So I'm pressing the keys and I'm not moving, and that's because it's expecting some sort of Unity remote connected over USB, etc. So I can't preview collision, etc. So so I've disabled that so that I can actually move around. So that's the first kind of setup, is to get the FPS controller working and the camera dragged and dropped into that. And that's very similar to if we were just making a standard FPS game and to use the prefabs from the Unity standard assets. If perchance you don't have the standard assets, you can literally go to the asset store and you can search for the word standard, and you get an array of things, and what you're interested in is this one here, which I've already got installed. So you'll probably have the word download, and you have to download it and install it, and this is free obviously. I haven't installed the models, and I've only installed the editor. You can actually see what I've installed over here. I have the utilities, the editor, cross-platform input, characters and cameras. So that's what I installed as from this pack here. So once I've got that done, now it's about trying to set up the Bluetooth input, which is actually quite straightforward. So I'm going to go to my preferences here. Actually, no, we'll come back to them. What we'll do first of all is we'll go to our project settings and do our input. So if I can drag this across, I'm going to go to player settings. So I've got input selected here, and by default when you set this up you've got mouse X and mouse Y, and that's it. And you can see I've got two of them. So mouse X here is set up, so the one by default is set up as mouse movement, and it's on the X axis. So I've duplicated that. I right clicked and I went duplicate array element, and this is my duplicate up here, and I've changed the type to joystick input, and I've told it it's on the third axis, because we want more than two axes of input. We want to be able to look up and down, left and right, but we also want to be moved forward and back, and then strife left and right as well. So we need basically 4 axes of movement. So in a similar way, I've got my mouse Y here, which is the standard mouse input on Y, and then my duplicate of the mouse input, and I've set that to joystick axis, and then the fourth axis. So we've X and Y for the mouse, and then another X and Y, or second set of inputs for the Bluetooth input. And that's all you need to do to set up Bluetooth input on for Unity. You just have to basically have an extra set of axes set up. Okay, so when we have that done, then it's a matter of testing that. So how do we do that? Well, we'd have to export a build. So we need to go File and Build Settings, and we need to make sure our scenes are here and that we're set to Android. And then we're going to hit Build. And you can see here I've got VR1 selected, and I hit Save and it builds. Before I do that though, I'll just have a quick show you. Normally what you would do first is you would go here to Android Studio and you'd go to the SDK Manager. And then from here you need to, under SDK, under System Settings, select the versions of Androids that you want to be able to emulate or to run on or export. And you can see here I've got this one only partly installed. I haven't put in any of the older ones, so basically I'm from Jelly Bean up to version 10. And then in my, do I want to, actually I'll just move that to my other monitor. And then over here, because there's no need for me to export it, I've already done that. Just to show you, what am I looking for here? Oh, actually I don't know, I'm looking for player settings, so I'm going to go player settings, and so before you would set the build, there's a couple of little things to do here. So you need to set your package name. So I think it says com.company com.unity. I don't know. It's got a generic name. You need to change it or it won't export. And then you've got your minimum API. So I've set mine to KitKat from the available ones, and then the target API, and I've set it to just be version 8. And I'm exporting to a Samsung Galaxy S9, so that's perfectly fine for my phone. I've also, the API compatibility level, I've set that to, instead of standard, I've set it to this one here. And what one other thing have I done? I have done one other thing. I have, well, obviously, we looked at this in class, so I've ticked virtual reality support. And then I've hit plus here where the mouse is, and I've chosen Cardboard as my VR platform. And then the last thing I've turned off, yeah, here we are. So this here color gamut, so when the default setting has another set of color in here, is called Vulkan. So I've selected that and hit minus and deleted it. You get compatibility issues with some phones if you leave it on, or sometimes it won't build. So just to show you, so I was going to turn on, so I've exported this and I have put it on my phone, and I have used a Bluetooth, very simple Bluetooth controller on my phone. So I was going to show you this here. So this is the phone here running. So this is the app, and so this is the level. You can see here the software I've used to record it. So I'm just moving around, so I'm not just limited to kind of looking, but actually I can physically move around the scene using Bluetooth input, and the gaze input still works there. So this is actually a screen grab of my phone, showing you sort of it in operation. So that's all we're going to cover in this tutorial, and we will get some try and get that working in class, and then we have plenty more to do. So I'll leave it there for now.